It's the Trackside Lounge, episode
17.
17.
Yep.
Although not technically.
No, it's episode 8 with us, but 17 overall.
Rightio, and we've got the video cameras up. We are here at our undisclosed place where we have a very special guest in the background.
No, we don't. What?
Look at that.
Oh, goodness. Who put that there?
Oh, where did that come from? Oh my God. And actually this place is full of it, but more on that later because we're full of it. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been doing it. We've been a bit busy. Certainly you chaps have been busy. And of course the motorsport world has been busy as well. Well, let's briefly cover that off because, look, is it me or is this Formula One thing starting to become a bit passé now?
I think we're buying into all of the storylines. It's like, I'm not sure if it's sons and daughters, neighbours or desperate housewives, but we're starting to hear all the stories, and we're starting to hear all the he said about this and she said about that and she's complaining about his, that and here. And I'm just, I don't really buy into that. But what I am buying into is that a couple of weeks ago at Monaco, it was nice to see Liam actually get some points on the board. Yeah. And unfortunately, just recently, the weekend before, he unfortunately didn't do so well in the Spanish Grand Prix.
The thing about Monaco is a lot of people have said it's like such a tight track, particularly with the cars being longer now. There's not a lot of passing. You've got to be brave under brakes going in past the swimming pool, or you've got to be in the pits, and it's pit strategy that does that. In fact, some people say it's become a procession, and one of the current Formula One drivers said this, and I'm quoting, the winner doesn't necessarily deserve it because of all the shenanigans that go on in the pits and that sort of thing. Of course, that was before he won the race of the weekend. So Lando Norris is going, oh, no, everyone deserves it. I'm a great driver.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. But, Liam Lawson picked up a nickname. He actually was given a nickname. Did you hear about that?
No.
He's now being called the Shield. No one can get past the way he was blocking it all up. And they said, it's a long time between drinks, but he's finally got a nickname.
Look, I just want to say a lot of people are talking about, Liam Lawson holding up, just like every other bloody driver would under instructions,
Well, this is the thing. It's just because he's the... And at that point, he was one of the few drivers who still hadn't scored any points, right?
That's right.
So, but... any team could have done that. Any team did do that. It wasn't just him that was...
We've seen it before.
Causing a bit of a choo-choo train. But look, the Monaco Grand Prix, it's a tricky one because it's got such a history behind it. It's one of the original Formula One races.
Yeah, huge.
And, there's been all the theories over the years on how to make... Because we do this every year. How do we make the Monaco Grand Prix exciting? And there's the theories of, using smaller cars. Do they do a one-off, smaller car for Monaco?
Use another track.
Use the Lego cars.
Yeah, exactly. How small were the cars back in the 50s, 60s, 70s? And now
shorter than this table.
Yeah, exactly. And now you see these cars that are way longer, they're wider.
Yep.
They are, in every measurable aspect, they're bigger. So, of course, if you put them on a track that's been used since 1929, you're going to have issues.
Yep. So
that's huge.
Yeah. So I don't know. What are they going to race it somewhere else? Maybe they'll put in different things where you have to stop at every casino and you've got to you got to win.
Put it all on black.
All on black. And if it comes up red, you have to park until it's your turn again.
No.
So we've gone back a couple of weeks with Monaco, and I'll just finish on the Monaco link there because it was actually a little bit of history made that it was 52 years since the last time a Kiwi scored points at Monaco, with Liam Lawson getting the 9th. And then in 1973, a youngish man called Denny Holm actually finished 6th at Monaco. So, let's not forget to celebrate the cool stuff. And that was pretty cool. So, I know all of the thing about holding up the traffic and blah, blah. And this is Monaco a couple of weeks ago. It's yesterday's news. It's last month's news. But that's still pretty cool that the 73 drought has been broken. And, Liam, for all of his struggles, like you said, it's been all season long waiting to get some points. And he did, and that's cool. And I think that's pretty celebrate. But Spain, and I know we're not just here to talk about Formula One, but Spain and Max Verstappen. How do you say his name? Verstappen. So, that's just gone on. That's just obviously the George Russell pass. He was told, hey, let George go past. He slows down. George goes to pass him. He goes, no, you're not going past me. Dunk, and gives him a bit of a walloping. So then he gets a 10-second penalty. Yeah. But wait, there's more. He doesn't just get the 10-second penalty. He's actually been pinged after the event as well. He's got 3 points on his super license now, and he's on 11 points in total on his super license. And apparently, there's only one more incident. He could be out. So he's got to be careful.
So if he gets kicked out for a race, then who fills in for him? Is it Franz Herrmann?
It has to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
It's not Yuki Tsunoda. We know that for sure. Right, let's get into IndyCar quickly because there's been a couple of races. Of course, Indy 500, that was the big one. And Scott McLaughlin taking himself out before the race even started.
Mate.
Wow.
He'll be losing sleep about that one for a wee while.
Then the Penske cars, all three of them were deemed illegal for some reason or other. And Penske fired 3 staff members. We're really sorry about that. And that's off they went. And it turns out that the guy that came second, Marcus Ericsson, got dropped to 31st because his car then failed post-race inspection. There's a whole bunch of... I thought IndyCar, the cars are similar apart from the engines, right? And then it's just the aero
They're
tweaking.
supposed to be like one of the most balanced, one of the most, anybody can... I mean, obviously it's a multi-million-dollar thing to get involved, but the idea is that any team should be able to show up and start being competitive from the get-go.
But the modification, though, that they got pinged over was a minus... Did you know what it was? It was actually a control part, the rear wing, and it's got a seam down it. And they filled the seam. And that's all it was. They instead of having this tiny little groove in this rear wing, they actually filled it in and made it smooth. Nanoseconds of a difference. I mean, nanoseconds of a difference.
But it builds up over 500 miles, mate.
And
Well, I
Penske's like Red Bull. Sorry, mate, but Penske's like Red Bull. You do really well, everyone celebrates. You do really bad, and whoever that person was or people that changed that, the dynamics of that rear wing, later, mate, gone.
They're gone. The interesting one that I saw, I'm not sure if it was the same, because like you say, there were a few technical infringements that were picked up. One of them was discovered on the 2024 Indy 500 winner, because they have that car on display. And someone went along with a camera and went, oh, look, that car's got the same, whether it was a seam filled or whatever it was. So was it illegal last year as well? Or I don't know. But yeah, look, again, for such a spec series as IndyCar, I mean, they've got their oval setup, they've got their road course setup. Obviously, the oval setup, they're going to want to go as fast in a straight line as possible. How does this stuff not get picked up before the race, in the pre-tech? I mean, you're talking about the Indy 500.
Exactly.
It's one of the big three, Le Mans 24, Indy 500, Monaco Grand Prix.
Yep.
If you win those 3 races...
Sorry, just saying.
If you win those 3 races in your lifetime, you're motoring legend.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about that is it was 2024, and like you say, it goes in the shed, and everyone goes, I don't know, what are we going to do? Are they going to pull his title away from him for that one?
Wow.
You never know.
Gee, that's huge. And just on the Indy 500, the finishes for the Kiwis, 18th place was Armstrong. 20th place was Dixon, and of course 30th DNF there for McLaughlin. But I mean, we were hoping for good things, weren't we? And they were looking strong, and practice, quali, all that sort of stuff. They were right up there, but FTF failed to finish. So,
and of course, in the race that was in Detroit street circuit, McLaughlin in trouble again, under yellow, taps a guy in front of him, spins him around one of the McLaren cars, which has sparked a debate with Tony Kanaan. Apparently, Scott McLaughlin and Tony Kanaan have a bit of a spat on social media. And anyway, the last one I saw this morning was Scott McLaughlin saying, look, I understand that old mate brake checked a little earlier than I expected, so caught him, sorry about that. But apparently they've got some beef, which is fine, because I got a ton of it for them. So clearly there's something going to build on that one.
We've got us a feud brewing. We're looking forward to that one, and we'll see how it all plays out. But, the thing about it, though, I've always said, and I've actually spoken to the guys about some of the contact class race, and I sort of see with, Speedway and that, we need the good guy, we need the bad guy. We need the World Wrestling Federation on the track. We need to have a good guy who's, he's fantastic and he gets bumped by the bad guy and it sells tickets, bums on seats. So if we're going to see something like this starting to happen between McLaughlin and, and other teams as well, I don't think it's a bad thing. And I'm not saying they should be demo derbying each other, but it's, do you know what I mean? It's it's cool.
Yeah, last year or the year before, I can't remember who it was, but there was this big article that did the rounds about how there were no more personalities in motorsports.
No.
You didn't see people having punch-ups afterwards, and you didn't see the passion and the sort of all that spilling over. So now that we're seeing that sort of crop up again, now, like you say, by all means, let's not turn it into a demo derby, but Ambrose and Murphy.
I was just going to say,
exactly.
This is a young guy here,
that was awesome,
and
wasn't
he knows about it. He knows about Ambrose and Murphy. You know about Scaife and Ingle. This is a young fella, and that was 20 plus years ago.
This is what we're seeing now, is this sort of stuff that we'll be looking back on in another 20 years of, do you remember, Lando and Max and all these different,
But, I mean, Lando and Max, it's kind of very much a hit with a wet bus ticket thing, isn't it? I didn't like that.
Yeah.
No, I didn't like that either. I'm going to go home.
Yeah. You'll touch my car, 1 penalty point, no problem.
Throwing the helmet down and saying, well, you pal.
You touch the rear wing, touch the rear wing, $50,000 fine. But hey, look, anyway, so we're seeing some personalities, we're seeing some passion. Dare I say it, we're seeing some drama. So I mean, that can't be a bad thing for the sport.
Thinking of talking about personalities and passion, we were involved with Lemons just recently now for Hooncorp Racing. How many cars did Hooncorp have entered?
We had 2 on the track at any given time. We took a spare car, and we also brought the we look after the sheriff car for the event, and that got used a couple of times because we were expecting it to be a VIP vehicle, but we sort of used it, and I think the
You are VIPs though. I mean,
sometimes. But the good thing was they both got across the line. The interesting thing was the 37 car, or the 37 entry, actually had 4 dirt track drivers in it, Woku dirt track drivers, barely a mark on the car. I think there was one tiny scuff on the left front wheel where Abima decided not to give him any room. But, dirt track guys are a great breeding ground to find decent circuit guys, because when the track got wet, the track
and it did.
Got pretty wet.
It took 2.5 days to get wet because it was a 3-day event, 24 hours over the 3 days. But when the track finally got wet, they really started to make up some ground. And the 37 team, I think they finished like 15th or 16th. But the 371 car, the first car with the quote unquote more speed, experienced drivers, 10th. And there was virtually overall, and there was virtually no bribes in that whatsoever. I think there might have been a couple of laps, but everyone else was bribing. Well, you know how much more than anybody else. You know,
people put some effort into the. In fact, it was funny too because there goes one of the cameras.
Whew, that was easy, wasn't it?
Is that a blooper?
Yeah, face down on the carpet just for a second there on the Trackside Lounge. We were talking about the 24 hours of Lemons racing that we got involved with. There was one really great thing that I really enjoyed in that weekend. It was about getting newbies in. And we're always talking about getting people started early in motorsport. And the idea was before the race actually started, teams would nominate, there would be an inexperienced driver. Some of them had never been racing before. Some of them had never raced in a team before. And they got them on the track and flung them around a bit. And actually, there were some blooming good little drivers. There was this young fella in the Thunderbirds team, right? Thunderbirds, great competitor with 24 Hours of Lemons for over a number of years. Always have really well experienced drivers. On the first day of racing, the newbie who'd never done it before was the fastest guy in the team. Which I thought was pretty impressive.
And that's sort of, I mean, we've talked before, obviously, about how Lemons is, how we're involved with it and have been for a long time. It's long been seen as a great way to get experience for not a lot of money comparatively. When you consider the cost of running a whole season of insert motorsport here. But this new test pilot type program that they trialed, and it was a trial. Obviously, they didn't know how it was going to go, and by all means, there are things that would be done differently, and I'm sure it'll get refined and used later. But it was just seeing all these absolute green rookies, first timers, newcomers. Some of them had never even driven manual before. Some of them had never even been on a racetrack before. It was it was cool to see, and especially with the having them all around the back at the end of it. Buzzing, electric, wired, really quite,
There was one guy who his racing experience came down to being a sim racer. And he was over the moon. Like the car, you got to understand it. I guess with sim racing, you can set up your car to have the greatest performance motor vehicle in the world. And when you turn up at Lemons, it's clearly not like that. And the car's not as fast, but it is a real racetrack. And you get to test out your lines in a real world situation. And this guy was absolutely buzzing about that. Said, look, I've done all the sim racing. And then he goes, and I'm pretty good. But this was something else.
Yeah, it was good. And we used the sheriff car for that as well. We had that provided for them. So obviously they used that for the test pilot scheme. Car came back. It was good. I mean, there was concern about how the cars were going to be driven. Bearing in mind it started a 3-day event using the same race cars that teams had turned up with. And I had a little bit of, butt pucker if these guys are, what if, and the scenario is, what if, one of these test pilots turn up and go and wreck someone's chances. There's a team of 3 or 4 or 5 drivers, and it wasn't anything like that happened, which was good. But I think there's a time for it. I think there's a place for it. Before a 3-day event, I'm not sure about it myself personally, but the good thing was it went well. And I think, if they do test days in the future or track days or whatever you want to call them and for the Lemons and say, hey, look, here's a time for you guys and girls to go out and test. And there were girls doing it too, which is awesome. And as well, they damn well should be, because women can drive, and there's no reason not to.
So that time and time again.
Yeah, it was good. But, it went trouble-free and, bringing fresh meat to the table, absolutely.
Honestly, my biggest frustration with the test pilot thing was that it meant we didn't do our grid shot.
That's true.
Normally before a 3-dayer, they're all lined up on the grid.
And they're all dressed up too.
We get dressed up in theme. We do the drones, we do the cameras, we do all of that sort of stuff. It's awesome. Didn't do it this year.
Lost the time,
So, never mind.
Anyway, like I said, they'll obviously refine it and try other things, and will they do it before a Pro Series race or before anyway, that's the thing. But
for the firecracker. But I got a shout out to I got a shout out to the Dirt Track boys, Dutchy, to Josh and to Jake, our newbies for the team. I mean, they were like absolutely awesome. It's funny, we actually did a test set in them the Saturday before. They did a test session in the car, sat in the car, doing the belts and all that, and they're going, I don't know if this is going to my arms are a bit, and all this sort of carry on. It's like, mate, get in the car, see if you can do an hour. No drama. And at the end of it, it was like, I go and see them after an hour, mate, how were your arms? Oh, no problem at all. You have this conception of what it's going to be like until the adrenaline kicks in. And it was really cool to see. I love pancake eyes. I've mentioned it before. Pancake eyes.
The thing I really enjoyed about it is we had a lot of newbies out there. We had newbies on the track, but you know what? They weren't cracking up. They weren't smashing their cars. We didn't have a lot of contact accidents, and it was wet, and so there was people driving off to go around things, and that was really about it. There was nothing major.
And that's always what Lemons has been about, isn't it? Is giving people that bug, that first-time experience to go, ooh, I want to get more into motorsports. And then what happens? They end up building a car. They end up competing in a series, whether they stay in Lemons or whether they graduate on to other things or whatever they choose to do with it. Getting that first time bug, that first time, this is pretty cool, I actually want to continue.
And on that theme of new, we also had something else a little bit new, something different, or someone different, I think is fair to say. We had the crazy judge. We had Glenn Hodges come along. Now, Glenn, I've known of Glenn. I met him up at Whangarei a couple of years ago, whatever it was, when we did the street sprint. And he was just a nut job. And I liked him straight away because I seem to get on well with nut jobs, Nick. Nothing personal, but we do. And and I thought, I reckon this guy would work out quite well. So we did the invite to him and said, hey, mate, do you want to come along and be guest judge? Because, Nick and I will do the job. Well, Nick, you got busy on the last day, and he stepped up, and he was there all 3 days. He was only going to be there one day.
Yeah. What a character. And
Second day.
The way he was like dishing out penalties, and he's not taking any BS from anyone.
And if you want to know more about Glenn, what's his he's got a YouTube channel.
The Lab
YouTube
NZ,
channel.
I think.
If you've ever thought to yourself, those Nissan March Micras, they could do with a lot more power. He's the man to sort that out, and I dare say we may have to get hold of him later on. Have a walk through his March because there's something else there.
That is just such a wild piece of engineering.
1K HP.
1K HP.
Real.
Wow.
Awesome.
Right, let's get into a little bit of sim racing, because you were involved in sim racing over the weekend, and there's been a big shift for you taking over and running some sim racing. And developing.
So we had the round 3 of the AUSNZ at the Circuit Paul Ricard.
Hello. Bonjour.
Paul Ricard's a
circuit.
Interesting facility. If the numbers are right, there's 270 different layouts you can use, because there's so many chicanes and runoffs and corners and it's supposed to be a testing facility as much as it's a racetrack, right? 270 different layouts. But the highlight for this one is the 1.8 kilometer back straight.
Yep.
So you're at pretty terminal velocity when you chuck it into the next corner. But look, it was a really it was actually quite the race. 4 hours, and just like some of the behaviour, some of the standards, the pace. I believe it was Brocky Sim Racing that took out the win. So that was pretty awesome.
Yep.
And then the BCG cars took out second and third.
Yep.
It was just the weather had no idea what it was doing.
Oh,
we
yeah.
started out it was dry,
Yep.
right? And then I think half an hour in it started to rain, which fair enough. Dried up again. Another half an hour later it rained again. So you're doing this is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? We ended up staying out on the slicks in the wet because knowing that it was going to dry up and obviously putting the wet tyres on to then have to put the slicks.
Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, it's sim racing, it's the weather. Imagine how good the sim racing is if it can get the weather exactly like it happens. It rains and it doesn't rain. And it's particularly, anyone that's been in a race car knows that the day you pick to go racing is when the weatherman gets it all completely bloody wrong.
Well, I think the biggest pain was that so the server's up like the entire month before the event, right? And it's track day rules apply. So you can show up and it could be 10 at night, do some laps, or you could show up at a more reasonable hour, 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and do some laps. So it's come and go as you please. There was never any rain in the entire build up to the race. I think it rained probably once, and then so we didn't bother setting up too hardcore for the wet. And then whoopsie daisies, it's
raining.
Very wet.
Oh,
But hats off to you guys. Of course, you were driving with Dub True at the same time in
Tim,
one of the second of the Hooncorp cars. And I've mentioned Smitty before about how Smitty actually goes about helping set up the cars. They did really well, but right towards the end, dropped back to where they wanted to be for I think it was a bit of a pit stop thing or something. And again, getting caught out on different tyres. And do you stay on? I don't know exactly what happened, but. These guys and a couple of others trying to stay out there on slicks and pouring rain, and because they've got a 30-minute predictor, it shows you what it's doing now, a 10-minute how it's going to be, and 30 minutes what it's going to be. So in 30 minutes you see it's going to be not wet anymore, and you've still got a long part of your stint to go. So it's quite a these guys are saying, okay, long-term pain, but long-term gain as well, short-term gain if we come in and change tyres. So it's a big thing, and it was really cool because not cool, but there was no broadcasting this time. They had a problem with the server. They had a problem with the guy doing it. He was tied up with things.
A lot of issues on the same weekend.
Yeah, and so from my point of view, I was a spectator. And it's the first time I've actually been able to just sit there and spectate an actual sim race. Normally I'm involved in one facet or another. Well, not driving, but normally commentating. And to actually sit back from your guys' view and just see your guys' view. I didn't have the overall view, which I could normally look at. And so I got the whole team experience of it. And the whole strategy they've got the headphones on, they're talking to their team at the same time. So there's 3 cars, Hooncorp cars on the track, and the bottom car, they had a few struggles and they got a finish. And Smitty and their car, they did really well, but you guys weren't too far behind. So your pace was good.
We were 7th and 8th in the end
incredible.
after 4 hours, and that was 24 cars started that race.
Yep.
So look, it was just one of those ones that. Sometimes the weather is a bit all over the place. You'll have races where it's completely bone dry. You'll have races where it's completely wet. And then this was that sort of that Goldilocks. It didn't really know what it was doing, to be fair.
So the big question is Aussie versus New Zealand. Who came out on top?
That would have been Aussies, unfortunately. Brocky Sim Racing with the win. BCG second and third.
Yep.
The championship leaders 5th.
Yeah.
So we'll be seeing how that sort of changes things around. Obviously, there's
The funny thing is, after you said Australia won, all I heard was blah, blah, blah.
Moving right on.
And when is the next one?
Not for like a while. It's probably a month and a bit. We head to Silverstone, which is a bit more of a traditional circuit, a bit more iconic.
But it's set in England, so imagine the weather's going to be a lot shitty.
And Hooncorp's got a pretty good track record at Silverstone.
Yeah, they do well.
So we'll see.
So, quick question. If I wanted to log on and have a look at that, how do I do that?
Discord is basically the massive one. If you're a gamer, you know what Discord is.
I have no idea what Discord is.
Yeah, no, but
Nathan sets it up for you.
It's on my phone, but I've got no idea.
And then the Hooncorp socials, obviously, where there's quite a bit of news coming in the next sort of week about sim racing, especially.
All right.
So by the time this comes out, that might well already be announced, or it'll be very, very soon. So.
Mate,
cool.
There's an aeroplane going past outside.
Don't give away where we are.
This is an uncanny backdrop.
That's a pretty big hint to this undisclosed location.
It is. Undisclosed location, the Trackside Lounge.
Motorsport New Zealand awards just recently, last couple of weeks.
Yes.
And Ray Williams was honourably mentioned in the Heritage Award. And I just wanted to shout out to Ray Williams because Racing Ray is an absolute legend. I mean, he is a very humble man. I think he has to accept the word legend, and not idol, but legend.
Yeah.
And you know, you just can't hug the guy enough because he helps out, whether it's top tier racing, he helps out with, you turn the track days, the downforce guys, he helps out with lemons. He's there on the gate more often than not, seeing all the cars out. He's wrapped up in the thermals, he'll be there in the rain. And they don't see that in MSNZ because, you know, this is obviously, you know, that's sort of Lemon's involvement, but all the other stuff that he does behind the scenes, it's all motorsport based. And I mean, going back to many years ago, 17, when he was sitting beside you, giving you an idea what to do in the car we had. And I just want to say a big shout out to Racing Ray because, mate, you really deserved that. And Motorsport New Zealand got it right on that instance. Absolutely perfect. Well done.
I will say this, though. It should have happened years ago, but there you go.
There we go.
Well,
there we go.
Hey, look, at least it happened in his lifetime.
At least it happened in our lifetime.
In our lifetime, yeah.
If you ever bump into Ray Williams, just say congratulations, mate, and then he'll start a story about a car that you just won't believe.
He always shifts the attention off himself too, eh?
He does.
He always makes you look like a genius when it's him he's done a huge thing. So, yeah, well done.
Speaking of cars, let's have a look at some of the vehicles that are in our undisclosed location.